Hey everybody, today I'm with Josselyne Herman-Saccio. She is a talent manager and I'm really excited to have her on because she is all about helping her clients and everybody that she comes into contact with really like take action and move forward and pursue what they're really after instead of just kind of waiting around and saying like someday. And I'm totally into that idea. And that's why I'm so excited to have you, Jocelyn, here. So take it away. I'd love to hear, how did you get into this and why do you love managing so much?
Well, I became a personal manager over 20 years ago, and it happened sort of organically. I had been a television producer. I produced television shows, commercials, feature films, and I was a pop singer, so I had managers. And during the course of my performing career, I had about 5 managers in 5 years, and none of the relationships ended well. And the girls in the group that I was in all would say to me, "Well, you should be our manager." And I was like, I don't want to be a manager. I mean, I had a lot of bad experiences with managers. I was like, why would I want to be a manager? And then when we broke up as a group, not badly, we just disbanded. One of the girls, who was the youngest girl, asked me to be her manager. And again, I said, I don't want to be a manager, but I don't trust anybody else to do it with you. So I'll do it until we find somebody. I'll help you look. And I started managing her just like kind of like as a favor, and started interviewing and I couldn't find anybody that I was willing to entrust what I considered to be like my kid sister's career with. So I just started doing it, and most of my best friends were all performers, so they all needed managers. So I was like, all right, fine, I'll do it. And so I just started my company that way with my like 5 best friends. And then that was 23 years ago.
It's so funny how we kind of like over and over again, I hear from the people who are most passionate and most love what they do that it happened by accident. That's
Yes,
how
I
I got
definitely
into
did not think I
photography.
was going to do that. That's how you
Yeah.
got into photography. Yeah.
Yeah, I shoot headshots. I mean, I love even more doing this whole like marketing and helping actors move their careers forward and stuff. And that was also sort of by accident because in order to market my own photography thing, I was like, well, how do I do this? And then I learned and I started teaching some of what I knew to actors and it worked for them. So it's like the people who are most passionate wind up falling into it by accident. It's not like one day you find out like, oh, this is what I'm going to do, you
Yeah.
know? But like, what do you most enjoy about managing? Like, why have you continued to do it?
Well, the most satisfying part of it is when people accomplish a dream. So, I mean, it's not the most profitable part, but it's the most exciting part for me is when somebody books their first commercial or they book their first role on a television show. I mean, obviously, these are not big money making things. When people book a series, it's exciting, but then they get into a different stage mentally. I like the freshness of developing people, which again is not a great business plan, but I do love it. So I continue to have, a lot of developmental people. And then I have people that I've developed over the years that are, doing well, so I can afford to develop people. But to me, that's the most exciting part is when, you call somebody with their first network television show booking and they're just, in tears, or they've always dreamt of being on a Marvel, TV show, and then they book and it's so exciting. And I don't even care if it's 2 lines. Like to me, it's the fulfillment of a vision or a dream that's the most exciting part.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. That's why I'm so excited to talk to you because I'm totally into that idea.
Mhm.
um, so I'd like to kind of go through a few questions
Sure.
because, you know, a lot of actors either, they're like, I want to get a manager or I really want to get an agent or something, to get in the room. But then a lot of actors who either have them or once they do get them, they're like, I feel like my manager or agent isn't really doing all that much. And I don't know like whether they're actually submitting me. How do I ask them without coming across as like needy or desperate or pissing them off? So that's what I'm curious to hear about. Like, my first question is, what are some things that you find a little bit difficult about being a manager that an actor might be able to help you with, like to make it easier for you to help them?
Well, those are two sort of different questions. So let me first of all, there was a lot in what you said, so I want to break down some of what you said, if that's okay,
Totally.
before you ask the question. Yeah. So I think one of the biggest problems that actors get into is they have expectations of their representation, which is not their job. So if you're a baseball player and you expect the catcher to pitch, you're going to be upset a lot because the catcher's job is to catch, not to pitch. The pitcher's job is to pitch. And if you expect the pitcher to catch, then that's also kind of crazy, right? So an agent's job, literally, they're licensed as employment agents. Their job is to seek work.
Mhm.
So submitting, getting appointments, that's all under the agent's bailiwick, so to speak, or their area.
Yeah.
A manager, that's not their job. A manager's job is to coach the client, not in their acting, but in their career path and their actions and their materials, to counsel them, to advise them, to manage the team of people that's causing their success, which includes agents, whether it's film and TV agents or print agents, commercial agents or literary agents, maybe a publicist, a lawyer, they're at obviously not everybody has all that at every stage of their career, but a manager's job is to manage that team, maximize the efforts of those members of the team, sometimes put people on the team or replace people on the team, depending on what that looks like in each person's career. It's very individual depending on the person. But a manager's job is not to get appointments. So when an actor says, well, my manager's not submitting, well, that's not their job. So if you expect them to do that, then you'll be chasing something that is like unreal. And if you expect an agent to give you advice, that's not their job. So
Mhm.
then you're pissed off because your agent has no time for you. Well, your agent shouldn't have time for you. Their time should be spent on the phone with casting directors or emailing casting directors, not talking to you. A
Mhm.
manager is more about the actor at their request, giving them advice, counsel, and coaching on the strategy, on how to move to the next level or maximize their materials, or so it's a different function. And I think one of the things that happens for actors is they collapse the two things and think getting a manager is just like getting somebody who's going to get them more appointments.
Yeah.
That's going to be not such a great recipe.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I think it's really important to differentiate between managers and agents there. Um, I do have a question for you. Someone just rang the doorbell, so I'm going to edit this out. Give me
No
2
problem.
seconds. But
No
the
problem.
question that I'm going to ask is, when do you feel like a manager is ready for, or an actor is ready for a manager? So, hey, okay, sorry.
No problem. Do you want to re-ask the question so that
Yeah,
we
yeah, I
have
will.
more
I will
context?
re-ask it. I was just kind of throwing it out there so you
Sure.
know what's coming. Um, okay, cool. So yeah. So my next question now, based on all that we just discussed, is when do you feel like an actor is ready for a manager? When is a manager really going to be able to help them in their career?
And again, there's not a pat answer for that because it just depends on the client. Some people get a manager before they get an agent to help them develop themselves to be agent friendly.
Mhm.
And it does help somebody getting an agent if they already have a manager, because it sort of adds sort of credibility to that actor, that somebody already believes in them and is going to bat for them. So an agent might listen differently to the actor's pitch of themselves or the manager's pitch to the agent, thinking, okay, I already have somebody else on the team, so I'm not trying to win this game by myself. Now, it's not that they need a manager necessarily at that stage in their career, but it can enhance their career because it can support them in what actions they're taking. So they're not just throwing spaghetti against the wall, seeing what sticks. They have some strategy to their acting career plan.
Mhm.
And that being said, once somebody has an agent and wants to expand their career, is seeing that they need advice, that would be a good time to get a manager. I have a lot of people come to me that have agents, but they have a really strong commercial agent, but they want to cross over into film and TV. That's a good time to be looking for a manager to help them cross over, because
Mhm.
the agents usually focus piecemeal. They're not across the board for the most part. And
Yeah.
even if you're with Abrams commercially, it doesn't mean you're with them theatrically. And,
Mhm.
and that goes for most agencies, unless they're very small agencies. So that's a good time to get a manager. Certainly, if you're being successful, you need a manager, because at that point there's a cap on what can get accomplished by an agent. So if you're on a series and all of a sudden are going to have to hire a publicist, that would be stupid not to have a manager at that point. But do you need a manager when you first start out? I don't think so. However, it can be a very smart way to go if you can find a manager that's interested in you. It can only benefit you. I mean, it costs you money, but it benefits you because somebody's willing to work for you basically on spec. And it costs manager money to, I mean, costs any representative money to represent people. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes, paying for breakdowns, it takes paying for phones. It's like a business. So if
Totally.
somebody's willing to invest in you, that is, a great thing as an actor to have somebody willing to be on your team. But it's not like there's a perfect time. There's not like a time. You can get it in the beginning, you can get it once you get successful. I always say it's better to have somebody on your team from the beginning, because then when you get successful, they were there from the beginning. Because once you're successful, then you don't know why people are interested. They
Hmm.
could just be interested for the paycheck. See, if you have somebody from the beginning, but oftentimes people get successful and then they move on to bigger managers or bigger, like there's not a lot of loyalty in this business, I've found. And it's not personal, but you know, it's people have short memories sometimes.
What would you say are some things that an actor should look for in a manager that's going to be like good for them? Like when they're trying to find a manager, managers, there's some that are really great and there's others who aren't so great, just like with photographers or any industry. Do you have any recommendation for like when an actor is looking to get a manager, how can they know that that manager will be someone who will actually really help them in their career?
You don't know. And just like when I bring an actor onto my roster, I don't know that they're going to book, and I don't know that, you just don't know. It's a leap of faith. So with a manager, I think it's more important the relationship, being able to speak to that person and feel like you can say anything to that person, because in a way, your manager is representing you to your agents. It's representing you to so you need to be able to be really straight and honest with your manager. Whereas an agent, you don't even really have to have a relationship with your agent. They just have to submit you.
Yeah.
So whether or not you like them, you want to have coffee with them, is irrelevant. I think with a manager, the most, at least from my point of view, is about your relationship and ease of communication with them.
Hmm.
That's what I would say would be the most important thing. Now, other people would say something else. They might say, oh, no, you got to have a manager that has a lot of relationship with producers so that they can get you in on the project before it even comes out on breakdown. Listen, that's that's like one in a zillion
Yeah,
times that
true.
that actually, and I have a lot of those relationships, and it doesn't make any difference. It's, if there's a lot of myths about how this all works.
It sounds like, though, that it really comes down to being effective with communication. If you find a manager who just won't respond to any of your emails or like doesn't want to have any meetings with you, that's definitely not a good sign. But if they're open to talking to you and they want to work with you and they want to jump on your team and help you achieve your goals and stuff, um, over time, it's just kind of the working together and figuring out what your goals
And
are.
you just don't know that it's going to work. I mean, I've kissed a lot of frogs. I've met people, and listen, actors are actors. They could act really great in a meeting and then turn out not to be so great, So it's like you just don't know really. So it is a leap of faith, but managers are not, it's illegal for a manager to freelance. So whereas agents can freelance because they're licensed and bonded by the state and they're licensed as employment agents, managers are not allowed to submit people or seek employment for them even on an incidental basis without having an exclusive contract with that actor. So it's much more of a commitment. Now, there are managers who freelance, and I'm not making a judgment call. I don't do it because it's illegal, so, but some people might not even know that it's illegal. So I'm not saying people are all,
Yeah.
in some, but, there are some managers who are not traditional managers where they advise, coach, and counsel and then help get agents on the team and manage the agent. They're more like agents that aren't licensed. So they're submitting, they're freelancing, they're just getting appointments, but it's not exclusive and they don't have a contract. So it's a little bit more like they're agents. not really managers. So sometimes people are with those kind of, like, they come meet with me and they say, oh, well, I'm with this manager, but they just submit me for commercials. That's not a manager. That's somebody who is functioning as an unlicensed agent, calling themselves a manager so that they don't have to get licensed and bonded, which costs money and is a whole thing. Which is, not a problem, but it's just not the same thing as a manager. So you have to really be clear about what you want. If you just want somebody submitting you, you can work with those people and freelance with them, and you're not going to get in trouble. They can get in trouble for freelancing you, but it rarely happens. But if you want a real manager, somebody who you're going to build a career with over time. I mean, I have clients I've been representing for 20 years. That's the kind of manager I want to be. So, but I also have a contract, and I enforce my contracts, and I, uphold my contracts, and I honor my contracts. So, somebody told me very, very early on in my career as a manager, and I thought it was so jaded, you don't make money on your relationships, you make money on your contracts. And I was like, oh my God, that's horrible. But it's true, because you could work really hard for 5 years. Somebody makes it, to book a series, and then they're like, oh, I don't need you anymore. Oh, okay, well, we have a contract. You might not need me, but you got to pay me. You can move out of the apartment, but you got to pay the rent. That's the way that goes. And it's kind of like, you have to deal with it that way, even though I don't want to work with somebody who doesn't want to work with me. But at the same time, I just put years into that person's career. So from a business perspective, if you don't have a contract, you're not protected. As an actor, if you don't have a contract with a manager, it's just up to your good business and your integrity, whether you pay them or not.
Yeah, totally. That's really good information. I want to move into this whole thing about actors and sort of their relationships with managers. And so my next question is, thinking about past situations, have there ever been things that actors have done that might have made your job more difficult or rubbed you the wrong way? Something that actors should avoid when they're working with a manager?
Well, I mean, there are things that I think all people should avoid when working in any professional situation, like being late
Yeah.
is a bad thing. It just doesn't work. It has an impact beyond the individual. It has an impact on the casting person's schedule. It has an impact on the reputation of your manager and your agent, because they're representing you and putting you in that slot, and then you don't show up. No shows, being late, saying you're going to do a self tape, not doing it, us having to chase you, not returning emails and phone calls promptly. All those things make our job more difficult. We work really hard to make something happen. It takes us 100 actions to get one result, and that's what's all behind the scene. People don't realize that. People don't realize how many actions it takes for one audition to come through. It's just and it's inappropriate. Like, I wouldn't realize what an actor has to deal with in terms of their prep for a role. I'll never know how much they have to practice and study and do whatever physical stuff they have to. That's not my job. My job is this job, and they don't know what it takes to do my job, right? So when an actor doesn't respond to an email or a phone call for an audition or a question within a short amount of time, they take a day to respond. I mean, that's just ridiculous. It's absurd. It's inappropriate and
How
unprofessional.
short or how quickly should they respond, in your opinion?
As far as I'm concerned, in these days where you have a smartphone and I mean, it should be within no more than an hour.
And
I mean, obviously, if you're working and
yeah.
you're at a restaurant job, and we know that, but that's also communication. It's like, listen, I'm not going to be available between 2 and 5 today, so if you need me, I won't be able to respond until after 5. That's just called being in communication. So that way we're not wondering, where the hell is this person and why haven't they responded and what's going on? Don't they want to go in for Law and Order? I mean, what's going on? Like, and then plus the casting office needs to confirm, so that because if you're not going to able to go, they can replace you with somebody else. But if it gets to be the end of the day and they haven't heard from you, and then they end up with an open slot that they could have replaced with another actor that could have made it. So it hasn't, people don't live in their own private Idaho. There's an impact of everything. The quicker you respond, the more effective your representation can be.
That makes a lot of sense. One thing, though, that some actors have mentioned to me that they're afraid of is like, oh, if I respond too quickly to someone, it'll seem like I'm desperate. Or
Okay, well, that's the stupidest thing I have ever heard. That is literally absurd. You're not dating your manager, okay? This is business, all right? The quicker you respond, the more on top of your game you will seem.
Yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate you explain like saying it just like that. You know, it's not dating. It's not about appearing desperate. They just want to get the job done. And even if you haven't signed yet, or especially like also if you haven't signed yet with somebody, like you're looking for an agent or a manager, if you respond very quickly to their emails, it's just only a good thing. It's not going to make you look like you're,
Yeah.
desperate for anything.
No, and by the way, even in dating, I think that's an absurd kind of thought to have. It's like, respond.
Yeah.
Things are happening right now. Life is happening right now, okay? And the less dead time in between, the less time people have to move on to the next thing. Period. Including, and every actor is replaceable. I know people think, oh, let me tell you something. I've been working in this business a long time. And I have had people on the set of a Denzel Washington movie started to be a pain in the ass to the producer, and they've called me saying, we're going to fire your client right now. We're just going to fire. And they think, oh, I'm on a Denzel, and I want a double banger dressing room, and I'm not coming out until I get. Are you on crack? Are you serious right now? Get out of your dressing room and do your job.
Yeah.
Just people have to realize this is a team effort. This business is a team effort. No one person is the star.
Mhm.
And you get on a television set and it is not about the and any lead actor on a television set will tell you that too, because without the grip and without the teamster and without the prop man and without there is no television show. So that's the worst kind of client for me, is somebody who lets it go to their head.
Mhm. Good. Excellent. Very good advice. All right. My next question, I would like for you to think about one of your ideal clients that you've worked with, either a current client or past client. Don't tell us their name. What did you most like about working with them? Like, what did they do, or what about them made them such a great actor to have on your roster?
Well, I mean, a lot of the things I say not to do, they didn't do those things. So they respond quickly, they're organized. When I do reviews with them in terms of like every 6 months or a year, I'll go through like a goals meeting with them. They'll be organized about how many casting directors they know, who have they met, who did they meet in the last 6 months, who haven't they seen in a year, how many callbacks did they get from that person, what's their booking ratio with that. But they're smart. They're smart and they're business minded and they keep track of stuff. It doesn't work when I say, have you met such and such casting director? And they're like, oh, I'm not sure. You should know, you should have a spreadsheet, the date you met them, whether they called you. I mean, it's like, this is a business. You can't be casual about your business. It's kind of like, well, I don't know how much money I have in the bank. Okay, well, good luck with that. You got to know your stuff, and you got to know who knows you and who doesn't know you. And then we can come up with a plan to determine, okay, how are we going to get to the people who don't know you so that they know you? Because that is one of the biggest goals or games or intentions, is that everybody in the casting community knows you. And the same thing with agents. It's like, if I'm going to pitch people to an agent, they have to be able to tell me if they met that agent. Because if they did meet the agent and I pitch them, then I look like an idiot. Then it's a wasted pitch. So I having the information is like, the ideal clients that I have. They're very self-starters. They generate work on their own. They're not like, why aren't you sending me out? They realize it doesn't work that way. You get called in, you don't get sent out. So the casting directors are your leverage point. You could submit people 100 million times, but if the casting director doesn't call you in, you're not getting it going in. That's how it works, except in commercials, where sometimes the agent is able to just put people in without the casting director specifically requesting people. They'll say, give me your top 5 at these times. But for film and TV and theater, it doesn't work that way. The casting director has all the say. So if you don't know casting directors and they're not familiar with your work, an agent or manager has 10 times harder a job. And it will be 10 times less likely that you're going to get the audition if you haven't done the work, the workshops, the classes to meet those casting directors, or the marketing, however you would do it, to make sure that they know who you are, because there's 8 million of you. Unless you're like an albino, one-legged veteran and they need that. And then you're the one person, so they'll see you because they don't know that many of them, which most people aren't. Most actors are, they're actors. They can play a lot of different roles because, of that. They're not, they might be unique in who they are, but in terms of a headshot and resume, it's not as easy to be unique. And most roles aren't calling for somebody that unique.
Mhm.
If you watch TV, that's, they're people that, lots of people are handsome brunettes or, beautiful blondes or whatever that, so you got to have to distinguish yourself by your relationships and everything. And, my ideal client who I'm thinking of has a spreadsheet of who they know and lets me know every month, okay, I'm going to meet this person because I haven't met that person yet. My goal this 6 months is to meet 10 new casting directors, and we're collaborative in that way.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's really important for actors to see how much of it is the marketing and business side. I mean, so many actors are really good actors. I like to say there's like three sides to an actor. The artist. This is like three sides to any business owner: the artist, the manager, and the entrepreneur. So the artist, and I'd say like at least 50% of actors out there are really really talented. Then you come to like the manager, which is how organized and how systematized they are, and maybe like only 5 or 10%. And then like the entrepreneur, which is someone who's like really like willing to take risks and believe in themselves and stick with it for the long term and stuff. And even fewer are like that. But that's the problem, is that from your perspective, on the manager and the casting directors and the agent side, so much of it is about the business and the presentation and the reliability and being systematized with everything. And yet so few actors think that that's what's important, and they're like, well, if I start being too like business minded, then I'm going to lose my creative side.
Well,
But
that's fine. That's why they hire agents and managers to be their business side, but they still have to get to know the casting director. So, you don't have to be a business genius to know who you met,
yeah.
to keep a list. It's not, brain science, it's a list. Okay. And it's like anybody who you need to know your buyers, and the casting directors are your buyers. And if you don't have an agent, I mean, what I always say to people that I take on that don't have agents, I say, okay, you need to get to know 10 to 12 casting directors, and then we'll go shop agents and we'll tell them, here are the casting directors who know me. Because now you're agent friendly. Now an agent isn't like, oh, I got to start from scratch and figure out how to get this person out there. And no, you've done work. And by the way, those relationships with those casting directors, you're going to have forever. You may not have that agent forever or that manager forever. You may move on after your contract is over. But those casting directors are going to know you for your whole career,
Yeah.
no matter where you are. So that's the smartest investment you could make as an actor, is to get to know those casting directors in the workshops, in the classes, in the one-on-ones, wherever you do them, because that's making you representative friendly.
Hmm. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. It's like, who do you know? Okay, great, you know those people, so now you can know this person. you know That's awesome. All right, so my last main question here is, if you have time for it. I know it's 11:30, but basically, if there's any general advice that you could give to actors who are either looking for managers or who have a manager, but they feel that their manager isn't as effective as they would like them to be. And I know we've kind of talked about this, about what the actual expectations are and stuff, but assuming that their expectations are correct, uh, is there any advice that you could give for actors who are looking for either a new manager or who want to work with their manager better?
Well, the first thing I would say is, if you're not happy with whatever your manager is doing or not doing, you got to get in communication with your manager and say, listen, there's some expectations I have. I want to get clear whether or not I should have those expectations, or whether that's the game you're playing, like, or what can I do to make your job easier? When people come to me and say, listen, I really, I know we both want me to get out more, but I want to know, what can I do to make your job easier? Have you gotten any bad feedback about me? Is there anything I should be doing from my, skills or development end? Or are there specific casting directors that are not calling me, like you find the agents are submitting me to, or you are, and I'm not getting the auditions? That's more useful than, why aren't I getting out? And I mean, listen, we don't make money unless the actor makes money. So it's in our best interest to have the actor go out. But oftentimes I'll ask for a submission report or provide a submission report and say, you should go over who's not calling you in. So we can start to hone in on whether listen, if nobody's calling you in, maybe it's your picture and resume. Maybe it's you don't have enough tape
Yeah.
or good tape. But if people know you and they're not calling you in, then that's a different thing. It's like, okay, if that casting director knows you and you've been in like 3 or 4 times with that person and they're not calling you in now, maybe something happened. You got to be able to look at what happened, not just live in some story about somebody's not doing a good job. Now, if you are looking for a new manager, here's the advice I have. Don't do it while you're signed, because this is a small business. And I have people come to me and say, oh, well, I'm currently with this manager. I say, I'm not going to have a meeting. Goodbye. I don't meet with people who have another man, unless that manager knows that you're not happy, you're not going to be renewing, and you're looking. That's fine. But that's like dating behind your girlfriend's back or your boyfriend. You can't do that. And it's too small a business. And when people come to me and they don't disclose that they have a manager, and I set up a meeting and I find out that they have a manager, I stop the meeting and I call that manager and I let them know, you need to know this person is seeking another manager, because that's just that's like just being a decent human being.
Mm.
It's like you tell your landlord, listen, I'm not going to be renewing my lease, so I'm going to be looking at other apartments. Okay, great, no problem. Because,
Yeah.
we invest a lot. People don't realize, from a manager's perspective or an agent's perspective, there's a lot of investment that goes into somebody. And I have relationships for 25 years that I'm investing in that person.
Yeah, totally.
So it's really bad. Like, I've had this happen a couple of times where I didn't know somebody wasn't going to be renewing with me, or I have something in my contract called the sunset clause, which allows people to get out early and just pay less and less overtime. And
Mhm.
I will break my back to get them a voiceover agent or this, or switch them to a bigger agent. And then they exercise I mean, that's just so not like being a good person,
Yeah.
because I just set you up with a top tier agency and then you disengage me. Now, still I'm getting paid, but that's not the point. Now, to that agency, I've lost credibility.
Mhm.
So it's just not cool. Just be in open communication.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. That's really good. Excellent. Awesome. Well, this has been a really fantastic interview. I think that anybody who watches this is going to learn a ton.
Good. I hope so.
Yeah, it was very, very helpful. Is there anything final that you'd like to say to people watching?
Well, I would just say, it depends on the stage of your career, but the casting director is the most important relationship you can have. And, I co-wrote a book with a client who is one of my favorite clients, called So You Want to Be a New York Actor. And there's a lot of advice in there and sort of step-by-step stuff, depending on, again, what stage of your career you're at. It's on Amazon and everything, so people can pick it up there. But this is not a career for people who expect things to happen to them without working for it. It's going to take you 100 actions for one result. And as an actor, if you have an agent and a manager, you're making 75% or 80% of the money. You got to do 80% of the work.
Yeah, makes sense. Awesome. Thank you so much. Really
Sure.
appreciate it. This was amazing.
Okay. Thanks for inviting me to do it. Okay. Have a great day.
Awesome. You too.